best way to begin probably would be to say you had a very unique experience as a Uyghur Muslim in Guantanamo Bay. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, that is actually a very interesting times of my life. But before I get into Guantanamo Bay, I want to begin by providing some context about that. Chinese government's crackdown on the religion and the Uyghur identity, especially right after 9/11, they immediately perpetrated Uyghurs as a terrorist, trying to manipulate war on terror. But even before that, for years, Uyghurs were facing persecution and had tried to seek refuge in the neighboring countries, such as like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Pakistan. But because of the extradition agreements, especially for after the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, they put the Uyghurs in a constant risk of being deported back to China. And some of those who were deported back, returned back to China, faced severe persecution. Even some of them were executed right after Pakistan deported some Uyghurs back. Because of that, many Uyghurs fled to Afghanistan and hoping to find a safe home for themselves. If you look at it, if you look at it before the 9/11 tragedy, Afghanistan was sort of like a place that the Muslims go without worrying about having valid visa or passport. But then after 9/11, when the United States went into Afghanistan to go after Taliban and Al-Qaeda, who are harboring Osama bin Laden, who was responsible for 9/11. Some of the villagers, eager to make money when U.S. government offered bounties for people who turn in foreign fighters. So some of the villagers turn the people who they can find for bounties, and the 22 Uyghurs became a victim of that. They were sold from the Pakistani bounty hunters from like $5,000 to $7,000 each. Simply, these Uyghur men were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then they ended up in Guantanamo. So at that time, there was no one in Guantanamo who spoke both Uyghur and English, and I was contacted by the government and contractors to serve as an interpreter. So I went there and I became the only Uyghur translator for the 22 detainees during 2002, responsible for both official questioning and interrogation, and also communicating their daily needs, unlike interpreters of other languages who were assigned to specific duties. I was called day and night for emergencies, medical issues, and all sorts of communications with military, police, and interrogators and the medical staff. So that role I had as a translator, helping out those 22 Uyghurs, today being used against me, actually. It started with immediately after I started to spoke out about this genocide. Zhou Zhuan, at that time, he was one of the deputy directors at Chinese Foreign Ministry. He tweeted, putting my photo and calling me Guantanamo torturer and the CIA and the liar and all kind of names, just to discredit my work and hurt my reputation.
And so after the U.S. government essentially realized what had happened to the Uyghurs and kind of dismissed them as a threat, correct?
Yes. The U.S. government immediately realized that those Uyghurs were not a threat to U.S. and its allies. But at the same time, the Uyghurs did not want to go back to China because they were escaping from persecution. So the U.S. tried to resettle them to third countries, but China was undoing everything the U.S. government was doing. U.S. approached for like more than 100 countries, actually, during the 11 years of their captivity in Guantanamo.
Because China was not happy with the the analysis of the U.S. that the Uyghurs were not a threat.
Absolutely, yes, because they immediately called them as the terrorists. That's why they were not happy that U.S. was going to release them to third countries for a safe home.
Well, because this was very important for China, for the Chinese Communist Party. Prior to 9/11, the Bush administration, I remember, was beginning to focus a lot on China as a threat to the U.S. But after 9/11, China sort of used the Uyghurs to be like, we'll help you with these Muslim extremists.
We were part of the war on terror.
We're part of the war on terror, yeah. And so that was a huge propaganda boon for China because the Bush administration then completely refocused to the Middle East.
Yes, very unfortunately, I was very frustrated to see that because right that summer, actually, just a few weeks before the 9/11 tragedy, remember at that time, Chinese government was trying really hard to get into the World Trade Organization, and they tried to get the Western companies to invest in China, and they were actually, floating the media with like a brief English propaganda videos from my homeland, and saying that beautiful place with peaceful, friendly Uyghur people, come and invest. Your investments are safe. But then immediately after the 9/11 tragedy, in overnight, the Uyghurs became terrorists because China saw this as an opportunity to persecute the Uyghurs, and they try to ally with United States, and they try to do whatever they can to get support.
It's really a shame Bush fell for that. He was usually so sharp.
Well, so I wanted to ask about going back to Guantanamo for a minute. So, you have a really interesting chapter in your book, and I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but can you tell us a little bit about when the Chinese intelligence people came to visit, and why were they let into Guantanamo?
Because there were so many people from different countries. By summer, by like June, July of 2002, we had people from like 30, 40 countries, I think, including Canadian and Australian. So as part of providing each government, each country, access to its citizens in Gitmo, the Chinese government team or government delegation or intelligence team were given access to Guantanamo in, I think it was end of August 2002, I believe, or early September, but that time, early fall or late summer. And the Chinese intelligence team came in actually with their own, not only their own translator, but even brought Chinese people who spoke Uyghur.
Okay, and how did that go? Like, how much of it did you observe?
I did not see them at all. I was kept on a different part of the base. I did not go to the camp detention cells at all while they were there, because the government was worried for my safety, and they were worried that if they see me there, they may go after my family. My parents both were alive at that time. So I didn't see them. But after they left, I think they were there for about 2 weeks and having daily interrogation of the Uyghurs there. But after they left, the Uyghur detainees told us that they were really horrible, the Chinese agents, and they mistreated the Uyghur detainees there with extreme cold, and they turned down the AC in very cold temperature, forcing them to sit in the freezing rooms for like hours. And also the Uyghur detainees were subject to a sleep deprivation. They kept them in the room without allowing them to sleep or going back to their cell blocks. So, it's ironically, people talk about torture in Guantanamo, but for the Uyghur detainees, this was the only incident of intentional mistreatment of the Uyghurs that I have witnessed toward Uyghur detainees during my time or after times in Gitmo, which was from the Chinese intelligence team, not the US government.
Thank you for watching. A link to Rushan's book, Unbroken, is below, and this clip was just one short highlight from our hour-plus long podcast. When you join us at ChinaUncensored.tv, you'll be able to download the full podcast and get exclusive deep dive episodes. But more importantly, you'll be standing up to the CCP. Link is below.